Welcome back to another video, technically kind of on Madden 24. Looking at more of the ratings, we're going to be looking at which 5 teams you should use for your franchise or rebuild, perhaps. Kind of clickbait for the title more than anything for Madden 24. Of course, most years, it's pretty straightforward. I do one of these pretty much every year. It's pretty straightforward. You know, the teams that are kind of on the worst side is the teams you'd look at. Teams with the most to rebuild, the most fun to rebuild as well on the list. But I will say this year kind of felt a little bit tougher than most, as there really wasn't a clear-cut group that is on here. I'd say maybe 1 or 2, but everyone you can make an argument for that shouldn't be on the list because they have certain positions that are actually pretty good. But this is my list, and like I said, because of the way Madden's kind of gone, or I guess real life with those Madden ratings, it's kind of become tougher as most teams kind of have some sort of usable quarterback, or the team around that unusable quarterback is really, really good. Like, you know, looking at a Packers team is not going to be on this list. Jordan Love is a little unusable in game. You probably need a new quarterback, but they have so many other high overalls across the board that they just can't simply make the roster here for this roster list. But looking at number 1 out of 5, you maybe argue that this team maybe should have just missed the top 5, and it was a tough one for me. I have 2 honorable mentions on top of the top 5 because of their offensive playmakers, but in general, they have so much missing on the defense that they just had to make the roster, the list, if you will. And number 5 is going to be the Cardinals. This list is so tight, like I said before, that this wasn't even on the list. I looked at the number 5, and I was like, you know what? That number 5 might actually be too good. And I ended up switching out with the Arizona Cardinals at number 5, losing DeAndre Hopkins, obviously a very big loss for the Madden roster itself. But you look at the team, Budda Baker is obviously very good, but Marquise Brown, speedy but short. Zach Ertz, that overall doesn't mean much as he's going to regress really hard. Isaiah Simmons, very raw but a good user. Rondale Moore, decently fast but also insanely short. I believe listed at 5'7". And then your best overall lineman is a 79 overall normal, like maybe 27-year-old. The big argument against this team would be Kyler Murray at quarterback, but you can make that argument, is he even the franchise's? You know, there's been some question marks in real life, but you could see that it's a steep downfall after that. And I mean, Paris Johnson's a nice addition. You need a lot of linemen. You could use 1, maybe 2 wide receivers, maybe a tight end, but you do have McBride, so you could use him. But is he still developable? I don't know. The whole D-line, pretty much, the whole front 7, you can make an argument, needs replacing. The corners need replacing. I mean, it's a team that, once again, of all the teams, which there aren't really a whole lot of teams that need super, super much, it is a team that is surprisingly grown to that bottom 5 type, if you will. As once again, I mean, the wide receiver situation, it's really small. It's a really, I mean, really with the quarterback as well, it's a really small group of quarterback to wide receiver ratio. The running back situation isn't great. Obviously, we're all talking from a game, you know, video game point of view. James Conner's not terrible in real life, but 87 speed, 87 excel from a non-developable running back is really brutal. This is a team that needs a lot of work, and I can't remember what their draft picks are. They might have a little bit of extra draft pickage to, well, complete that. And then number 4 is basically a team, spoiler alert, I will be guaranteeing myself to use, whether that's the offline or the online. It has yet to be decided. A little bit of a spoiler there, but we'll go into an in-depth kind of like roster look at us, I imagine, before Madden 24 comes out. But it's a team that's not necessarily the most rebuild needy, but it's a team that I've wanted to get back to for some time. And it is a team that it's probably the last kind of chance you're going to be able to, is they are definitely building something special in Chicago, but they are still a little bits away. The O-line could still use a little bit of work. Cole Kmet got a very big contract for being pretty mid in game, so as much as Bears fans might like Cole Kmet and like the upside, he'd probably be a guy you would replace. Center needs to be replaced. Free safety needs to be replaced. Some of the linemen in general need to be replaced. They need a whole front 4. Corners could definitely use an upgrade, and in general, I mean, it is a pretty low group of players. Chase Claypool is a guy you maybe trade off early, so you need a new wide receiver. Running back, you do have Khalil Herbert, but in-game, you're not absolutely locked into him, so you can definitely draft someone there and develop them. So it's not like you're locked in like some of these other teams where, you know, you have such a good player you can't move on. There are a lot of players like that where you can obviously replace them. Tight end, I probably would. Cole Kmet, as good as he is at catching, 82 speed is brutal from the tight end position. Justin Fields, obviously a lot of fun, but they did rate him pretty lowly. So 76 overall, 25-year-old now for the game is not the best. So it's not like he's going to be flying up the upgrades category, if you will, but super fun with the read option, which is why you'd obviously love to use him and you want him to succeed. But some of the lower ratings, I've seen a lot of rookies like 68, 69 overall with similar rookie ratings in these. So definitely not an OP team, not the most rebuild needy team at this point, but still a lot of work on the defense needs to be done. And you could use a wide receiver too, because obviously DJ Moore is your number one, but Mooney in game, he is on the smaller side, but he is very fast. So maybe you could use another wide receiver, tight end, running back or two. O-line needs work. Front four, you need basically a whole pass rush. Corners could use some work. And once again, like I said, most of the teams now have close to a franchise quarterback or someone that's usable. So, it's not going to be easy to just find some bum team that just needs every single position. But this is my number 4 team. And maybe you're going to disagree with my number 3 team because they do have a little bit of OP players now with DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry. But you do have to factor in that DeAndre Hopkins is likely going to be star dev in the game again. Well, maybe not likely, but there's a good chance he's star dev in the game again. And 89 speed, 87 XL isn't the most OP. And I do have to admit that I kind of maybe forgot a little bit about DeAndre Hopkins when I chose this team. But it's a team that absolutely needs quarterback. You have an aging piece in Derrick Henry. Should last a while, but we don't know how the regression is going to be in the game. But you look elsewhere, Autry needs to be replaced. Landry hasn't really earned that contract, really. DT Tart might need to be replaced. You need, off the top of my head, while I'm scrolling through here, you need some offensive linemen. You need a wide receiver or two. Tight end Okonkwo could definitely be used, but he needs to be developed, so it's not guaranteed. Quarterback, you do have Levis, but he's pretty mid in game, so it's not like he's fully developed. There's no guarantee there. Maybe you trade off Tannehill for some draft picks or something. You could use a corner, but I think you have your developmental pieces already there. Linebacker for sure is a problem. Maybe pass rushing edge with 2 insides. Safety wouldn't hurt, but you do have Hooker. Once again, it's not a perfect situation as there's so many teams now that have their guy at quarterback or a pretty balanced team in the game, as the ratings in general kind of seem a little bit up overall across the board than most teams. And because they're just missing that quarterback kind of badly, that's why I have them as low as I do, because let's see Levis. I don't think Levis is that great. He's definitely usable, but 80 speed, 85 XL is nothing to, write home about there. 94 throw power, should be 23 normal in the game. So obviously, if you don't get that dev up year 1, he's already basically replaceable. But let's try to actually compare his passing. Not that close to Fields, but kind of close to Fields if you really think about it. But in general, my number 3 team, but I do have 3, honorable mentions that maybe you like those instead. There are a lot of really good overalls here, but at the same time, the Titans are a roster that I think is a pretty good rebuild team. And then we return to the AFC South for yet another team on the list, and that's the Houston Texans, a team that is actually pretty young. So there are a lot of guys that might develop kind of quickly, but it is still a roster that is missing quite a bit of talent. They were the 2nd overall draft pick team for a reason. Left tackle solid. Jimmy Ward needs to be replaced, maybe even year 1. Guard is solid. Pierce is fun. Tight end, once again, I like someone's a little faster, so Dalton Schultz might be a let-go guy. Perriman needs to be replaced. Singletary, I think, is a replacement. King, you replace. Fairburn, I don't know. I'd rather go for a rookie. Shaquille Griffin, he's a little bit slower in this game, it seems, but 79 overall at his age, maybe even dropped off star, needs to be replaced. Steven Nelson's unusable in the game. Will Anderson's obviously your big rookie key player. Same with Stingley. Petrie's decent, but interior of the D-line needs to be helped. You could use another edge. Quarterback's obviously set. Wide receivers, you could definitely use some work there. O-line, you need a couple of pieces. Linebacker, you need a couple of pieces. DB in general, you need a couple of pieces. This is a team that, outside of quarterback, may be the bottom 3 roster in the game, but like I said, they do have some young guys that aren't guaranteed to develop, but they are developable, like Petrie and all them. So this is my number 2 team, and a team that I'm actually kind of debating hard on if they're going to be. And once again, the rookie quarterback, you have one, but he's not OP. 89 throw power, 82 speed, 87 XL. You almost argue if you're how you want to play it. If you're playing for just building the best roster possible, do you want to replace him? Because honestly, in game, you could definitely do that. But obviously, if I was going to do a franchise with them, it doesn't matter how bad he is. I'd give him at least 2 seasons. But this is a team, like I said, I'm also debating on hard. It could be Bears-Texans. I don't know. It could be Bears-Texans. But that is my number 2 team. Speaking of comparing him to Fields, that throw power. I mean, look at the accuracies. I'm saying pretty much better than Fields across the board. So if anyone thinks that the Bears are too OP because of Fields, think again. I think he's going to be 25 in the game. I believe at worst or at youngest 24, 76 overall. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time to get him to beastliness. But once again, you have that fun read option stuff. But before we get to number 1, let's do the honorable mentions. One of them, which is kind of low on my list because they actually do have a lot of talent, is the Colts. They're, another AFC South team. You have a pretty solid offensive line. You have the guard and the tackle, and I believe they still have the center that's decent. But you do lack a little bit at wide receiver. Pittman's your best guy, but he's not the fastest. And then obviously Anthony Richardson's super fun as a quarterback prospect. Jonathan Taylor, if he does get traded or for whatever reason released before the season starts, this team definitely slips into the top 5. I think you maybe remove Tennessee, and put them in there somewhere. But as of right now, Jonathan Taylor's so OP in the game, and you have some pretty good offensive linemen. So just making it outside of the list, especially with a couple of young up-and-coming defenders like Julian Blackmon and Kwity Paye and Brent, even though he's only 88 speed, is tall, so you get 1 or 2 speed upgrades, who knows? And then obviously, even if he is normal, which he might be, the quarterback Anthony Richardson with that insane rookie set. He's like Justin Fields, but younger and stronger. He's pretty busted. So just outside of the top 5, but a super fun team that a lot of people probably will be using. Then for team 2 out of 3 for our honorable mentions, the Broncos, a team that is, a lot of mid-80s, low 80s, but they are aging. Randy Gregory's not a long-term guy. Simmons, how long-term? Probably not that long, especially if you start Dev again. Ben Powers is pretty long-term in fairness, but Bowles and Powers not going to really upgrade from that point too much because they're both about 26, 27 or a little bit higher. Jewell, you want to replace. McGlinchey's actually pretty decent. So their O-line's actually kind of improved. Wide receiver outside of Judy, though, I would debate releasing or replacing all of them. But D-line definitely needs some work. You could use some help at cornerback outside of Surtain, obviously. And then quarterback, what do you want to do with Russell Wilson? He's going to be very good in the game year 1, but no matter how well you do, he's going to regress and maybe even retire. So if you don't want to cheat, even though it's cheating for the smart reason of fixing a guy that should be fixed if he plays well, you're going to need a quarterback. So this team could have easily made it on my list, but at the same time, you still have Russell Wilson, who should be superstar in the game still, and you do have a lot of young pieces across the board. Sutton in game might be a little almost unusable. That progression it's kind of maxed, 27 maybe in the game? I don't even know, but star dev. But they definitely have just a little bit too much talent, in my opinion, especially when you factor in Russ. And then the final honorable mention is a team that was going to come in at number 5, but they just had too much offensive talent for me to keep them on the list. Obviously, an insane lineman in Lindstrom. Jesse Bates is great. AJ Terrell is insane. Pitts, the biggest dynamic player on offense, the biggest mismatch there is. Grady Jarrett's still usable. Calais Campbell's a 1-year guy, but he has superstar. Sam Cordero Patterson, some really good receiving back abilities, which are actually kind of busted. Jake Matthews is solid, but guys like Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Pitts, you're almost set already at some of the tougher, more fun positions to develop. Younghoe Koo is a superstar development trade, I believe. But they have some okay corners outside of Terrell, and I just think across the board, they are still missing a front for the most part, but the offensive players, especially when you look at how much of a mismatch they are, Bijan, one of the best running backs in the game already, Pitts, like I said, the best tight end in the game, basically, when you look at the speed and how young he is and the size. And then you have a usable quarterback in Ritter who, he's very fast, decent throw power. The age is going to be up there, maybe 24, 25, but usable, they would have been just outside the top 5. And like I said, they were actually technically number 5, but then I was like, I think Arizona, even though they have the quarterback, needs a little bit more help. And honestly, if I was redoing this, maybe I'd put Tennessee at 5, just because they do have a couple of pretty good players too. But yeah, maybe Tennessee at 5, Cardinals at 4, Bears at 3, Texans at 2, whatever. But I don't really care too much. You get the gist. It's a good team list. even if it's not the specific best top 5 order. And maybe I've already actually spoiled it. No, I didn't, because we would cut that part out of the screen. I think without a doubt, the number 1 team for a rebuild or using in Madden 24 is the LA Rams. Aaron Donald's a guy that probably retires after 2, maybe 3 seasons at most in Sim, but it is just a team that needs so much outside of those 2 top names in Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald. Once again, we talked about how pretty much every team is going to have a couple of playmakers, right? That's what makes, well, the NFL fun. Doesn't matter what team you're a fan of, they probably have a playmaker or 2. But when you take away those 2, then you're left with a lot of question marks. Akers probably is a usable running back. I probably would start him. Havenstein's a good tackle, but that's where it drops off. Higbee's too slow to start. Van Jefferson's too old. That's 76 overall. Witherspoon's too old. That's 75 overall. This is hands down the number 1 rebuild team in the game. Stafford's throw power is not even that good. He's a 75 overall, probably star, maybe normal dev, older, veteran quarterback that you would definitely replace outside of salary cap issues. It is a team that needs so damn much. You need O-line, you need wide receiver, you could argue running back, you need tight end, you need quarterback, you need a front 4 outside of Donald, you need corners, you need safety, you need linebacker. There's a lot of need on this team, and if I didn't recently use this team for a series, I would absolutely hands down use them, as I think this was the easiest decision at number 1 and just in general in the top 5. All the other teams that can make arguments to not be in there because they have, just enough good players, but this team takes the cake from most need for a team. Like I said, maybe not the number 1, but very close to the biggest drop-off from Super Bowl to bust, really, that we've ever seen. I mean, it is up there. They've, like I said, got some pieces, but even you look at Byron Young here, speed, rookie, I believe he's 24 or 25. So, I mean, they drafted old at certain positions. It is a team that needs a lot of work, and like I said, this is my number 1. Let me know what you guys thought of this list, who I should have included, who I should not have included. Maybe you argue like, wow, the Titans, really? D-Hop, Henry, really? The Levis is going to be usable. Like I said, it's not the perfect list. I had the Vikings potentially on there because of Kirk Cousins, but Jefferson, some other players on their team are still decently high overall. You can make an argument for them to be on the top 5 or in the honorable list, but that's going to be my list. And like I said, more discussions in the comment section below about what team I missed, what team you're excited to use, which team shouldn't have been on this list, and maybe some rookies that you want to see or want to use in the upcoming game. But that's about it. Maybe the next, I'm trying to think, ratings video, maybe next ratings video would be the reveal of the teams. I'm not sure. We're still kind of deciding how we want to do it in the online league, so that one's kind of being held up more than the offline league. I have a couple of teams that I'm pretty locked in on, but yeah, maybe that's the next ratings video, unless there's something you guys suggest. Either way, if you guys enjoyed, maybe leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you're not new, really appreciate continued support on the channel. Maybe follow me on Twitter, Jeromepkr, second channel PK plays for non-Madden content, which I'm actually probably going to upload something on Friday. Not guaranteed, but I've kind of had something planned a little bit, so maybe check that out. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys come back for the next video, but until next video,